You watch the sunrise from the safety of your base. The wind rustles through the trees as you venture out. You look up and the sun is shining. It's a beautiful day. You've watched Serial Overdrive's Beginner Guide to Rust, and you know everything there is to know. Feeling confident and fulfilled, you take your car out for a nice drive. You see Dave. You go to wave to Dave, and your car swerves off the road and hits him. You know your actions will be misinterpreted, so you take Dave out. Unfortunately, Dave can revive, so it's time to prepare for war. Welcome, folks. I'm Serial Overdrive, and this is going to be the more advanced guide to Rust. What I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be sort of improving upon my beginner's guide, or this is part 2 of the beginner's guide, where I'm going to be showing you what's going on with this game, how you guys can get to the next level, run some monuments, kill some people, raid some bases, and get some guns. So let's just dive right into it and get going. So what you're going to do after you've got your basic base set up, you've got all that stuff that we talked about in the beginner's guide, is you're going to start running monuments. What you want to do initially is start off with the small monuments. You're going to be doing things like the harbor. You're going to be doing mining outposts. You're going to be doing gas stations. And this is probably going to net you about 100 scrap and, in some cases, green key cards. You're going to be able to get these from the harbor, the gas stations, and from killing scientists. So if you're not by one of the monuments that loots a green key card, keep an eye out for scientists, because they're going to get you that initial key card that you need. In addition to running these small monuments and going through the road, it does make sense sometimes to take a boat out, especially early game. A lot of players aren't going to be looking to see, and if nobody has a sniper rifle, nobody's going to be able to snipe you. And what that means is it's wide open. You can run out there playing some Pirates of the Caribbean and diving for sunken treasure. There's going to be some good sort of tier 1 and tier 2 boxes that you're going to find down there. Those are going to be able to loot you some cool stuff at about the same rate that you get if you're running the road or doing some of those smaller monuments. Overall, you're going to be getting about 100 scrap, in the 10 to 20 minutes using this method. This is whether you're going out on the boat, going on the road, or just running through sort of smaller outposts. You're also going to get some sort of good stuff from this. Any tier 2 or tier 1 item is possible to loot. But early on, you're most likely to get stuff like a garage door, a hazmat suit, maybe a pistol or two, but some very low-level guns, if any at all. So what you're going to want to do is, as you get this stuff, research it. That's obvious, especially if you want it. Hazmat suits are a must. Garage doors are a must. Guns, obviously a must. So after you've gotten a good amount of research done and everything like that, you're going to want to secure your base. You should be able to do this early on, because you're going to be able to get things like shotgun turrets and flamethrowers, or what are those called? Whatever those things are called. You're going to be able to get them pretty easily off the road and those small monuments that we just talked about. So I'd recommend, before going to tier 2 monuments or anything like that, you secure your base. At this point, you're going to be honeycombing. You're going to be putting down shotgun turrets and everything like that. It would be sort of bad for me not to mention this. There is the Outpost. You can go to the Outpost or Bandit Camp to buy some stuff. So if you go there with some scrap, generally this is how you're going to want to do it. You're going to want to either go to the Outpost with scrap or things to recycle that, get your scrap, and you can see here you can also buy stone, wood, metal fragments with the scrap, and there's a whole sort of meta that goes on around that, but we're not going to discuss that. There's plenty of people making amazing videos on that, but that's not what this video is for. Anyways, you're going to want to get your scrap here. You can get quite a bit of scrap just from recycling things. So if you run a monument and then you run right to the Outpost if it's nearby, that's a great way to go. And then you can use your scrap to buy a nice assortment of things. This is going to include guns, shotgun traps, automated turrets, all sorts of cool stuff that you can actually use to defend your base or defend yourself if you really want to. You're not going to find any raiding gear here, but the most important thing you're going to find here, you're going to find the jackhammer and the chainsaw. These are amazing late game items. They're going to really increase your harvesting chances. And in my opinion, before running any tier 2 monuments, you're going to want to sort of have the jackhammer and the chainsaw. It's going to allow you to farm resources so much faster. And this is when you can really secure your base, because now you've got as much wood as you need. You've got as much sort of stone or metal as you need. And you can really just sort of not worry about your base anymore. It's going to take you a couple minutes to farm up all the resources that you're going to need for a day, assuming that you've got a small base. If you're watching this in your clan, this doesn't apply to you, but you guys probably own the server, right? So you don't even need this video. Anyways, you're going to want to use your chainsaw and everything like that to go hardcore, get some really good resources, and secure your base. My recommendation is, before going tier 2, tier 3 monuments or anything like that, secure your base. You're going to see that's a theme, because what you don't want is for someone to come and raid you after you've gotten a good loot. And some of the time people are going to know that you've been doing something. They're going to know you've got a good loot, so make sure you protect it. When I say secure your base, that could be making multiple bases and sort of splitting all your items between that. That could be putting in, shotgun traps and all sorts of stuff like that. It could even be honeycombing, putting multiple doors, making sure that if someone really wants your stuff, they're going to have to work for it. And one thing I always recommend is if you get something, use it. Because in Rust, a lot of your stuff just isn't going to last. People are going to raid, they're going to take it, you're going to lose it. So don't hoard things because you're just hoarding them for whoever raids your base. Use them, have fun with them, enjoy them, and if you lose them, it's no big deal because at least you had fun doing it. Also, right here, there is an ice pick and a salvaged hammer that you can use. These are going to be the most craftable mining tools that you can get. I recommend taking those out on any sort of long adventures that you have because losing a jackhammer or chainsaw sucks. Also, if you want to just stop here and raid without tier 3 components or anything like that, you're going to have to use satchel charges. Satchel charges are extremely slow, they really suck, they make a lot of noise, and they can randomly explode on you, which leads you to dying. And that's really bad because you're dying with all your raiding resources. Everybody heard you because satchel charges are loud, and now they're going to come to investigate, and life is going to suck. So yeah, satchel charges, avoid those unless it's a really sort of weird time that you're raiding, so you're offlining, or just avoid them. What you're going to want to do, what you're actually going to want to do is go for that tier 3 workbench. So unfortunately in Rust right now, as of August 2020, there's no tier 2 components that you can use to raid. There's no explosive ammo, there's no explosives or anything like this that you can use, which means you need to go for the tier 3 workbench. You need that if you're going to be raiding other players. It sucks, but that's just how it works. To get a tier 3 workbench, and workbenches are going to be, you can pick them up at some point, but to get a tier 3 workbench, if you're running sort of those lower level monuments, it's not going to be too hard, but it's going to be a lot easier if you just go one step further and start running tier 2 monuments. Tier 2 monuments are generally going to be giving you about 200 to 300 scrap a monument, but first off, I think we covered this early on, but I'm going to cover it once again in case you missed it. To get those tier 2 cards, or to get those blue cards, I call them tier 2 monuments, but they're really blue card monuments, blue card puzzles. To get those, what you're going to need to do is just run a green card puzzle. You're going to use a servo, you're going to stick it in somewhere, and then you're going to turn that thing on and just complete your green card monument. If you're wondering how to complete monuments or anything like that, I am going to put out guide videos for that, but this is not the video that's going to tell you how to complete every monument. There's plenty of videos on that. There's plenty of stuff on, I think, the Rust Labs website. They'll go over everything like that, but basically just look up green card monuments, figure out how to get the blue card out of those, and now you can run your blue card or your tier 2 monuments. These are going to give you some really good loot, and generally right here is where you're going to get the red key card. Those are used for tier 3 monuments. And you're going to have a lot more that you can recycle and turn into scrap. So basically, the moral of the story is tier 2 monuments or blue card monuments are better to run because they're going to give you more boxes, and more of those boxes are going to be tier 2 boxes, which give you better loot. In tier 2 boxes, you can find things like missile launchers, Thompson guns, you can find supply drops, and all sorts of cool stuff. In addition to that, they're just generally giving you better stuff, which means when you go to recycle, you're more likely to get more scrap. And how much scrap are we talking? A tier 2 monument is going to net you probably 200 to 300 scrap if you're running something like power plant. If you're going to a sort of better known or better paying, I guess, in quotation marks here, a better paying monument, you're probably going to get something like 300 to 400 scrap. Personally, I think Train Yard is a little bit better paying, but your chances of dying here are way higher. What I tend to do is go to monuments that are in snowy areas. There's less people out there, and you can run the monuments in peace. And when you want to go fight someone, you go to a monument that's sort of in the middle of it all and in the thick of it. At least as a solo player, that's what I like to do. Now, when it comes to red card monuments, I generally don't run those because they're just too high action, and there's a lot of big clans there, and what happens is when the big clans hear gunfire, they tend to come and investigate, which means you just get ganked, and that sucks. So yeah, I tend to stick to tier 2 monuments as a solo player, but if you're pretty good, you can always go with the tier 3s and try it out. But if you're pretty good, you're probably not watching this guide, or if you are, you're watching to critique me, so bring it on. Anyways, some quick tips for those of you who are sort of new to running these monuments. If you're running most monuments, you're going to be able to find a research table, and things like power plant, the research table is behind quite a few layers of key cards, which means you could just hang out there and research things that you want the blueprints for rather than risking going back to your base. You've got the scrap, you've got the item, why not research it? And another quick tip, if you do see a switch that's on, it means that there's probably enemy players around. I, for some reason, didn't realize this and ended up dying because of it, which sucked and made me feel like an idiot, so don't do that. Now, assuming you've run these monuments right and everything like that, you're coming back with some good gear, you're researching that gear, anything that's, that you want, like a missile launcher, you want to research that ASAP. If you do happen to do tier 3 stuff, you want to research anything that's tier 3 that you get, because right here, you can actually go to your workbench, you can put in 1,000 scrap and just hit research, and you're going to get a random blueprint. It's going to be a blueprint that you don't have, so the more tier 3 blueprints you have, even if they're complete shit, the better it is, because the more likely you are to get cool stuff, like a bolt-action rifle. Now, this method is a bit time-consuming. It's probably going to take you maybe an hour to get 1,000 scrap, which is quite a bit of time, and sometimes it's not the blueprint you're looking for, which does suck, but it's a pretty surefire way to just run tier 3 monuments and still get to the point where you can get some tier 3 stuff. Now, another way to do it is you can actually put items up for sale. So to do this, set up a shop and put in some item that's decently good. You can either trade things like rocket launchers or supply drops for tier 3 items or tier 2 items that you need. Or what you can do is you can take a tier 3 item that you can craft it, and put it up for sale for another tier 3 item of equal sort of value that you don't have. What this is going to allow you to do is research that item and get it off your list. It costs about 500 scrap to research a tier 3 item, but it costs 1,000 scrap to just randomly get it at the workbench. So if you can get everything besides for missiles, which a lot of people probably won't sell you, you can just put 1,000 scrap into your workbench and get the missiles. There's actually sites that you can put all this stuff into and figure out what your chances are of getting a missile or a sort of armored door or something that you don't want. So yeah, feel free to go to those and check that out. But basically, the more tier 3 things you have researched, the better. So anytime you can get a tier 3 item, even if it's a complete shit item, get it and research it, because it's good for you. In this case, I threw some stuff up and I managed to get 2 semi-automatic weapons, or semi-automatic machine guns. And what this means now is that I can research those and use a sort of tier 3 blueprint that I'd gotten, which was explosive ammo, to go on a raid. Now, I could have done it with the bolt-action rifle, and I did do it with the bolt-action rifle, but being able to get this semi-automatic rifle without having to run any monuments or anything like that was key, because now I can go to these monuments, I can mess with players, I can take some shots, I can try and get some kills. It doesn't always work out for you, and anytime you go into one of these situations, you've got to be prepared to die, because there's probably players better than you coming up and killing you, which happens to me quite often. But it was a lot of fun. I was really glad that I got to do it, because, yeah, if I hadn't been able to sell a supply drop for those guns, I never would have gotten to go and, well, give it a shot. Now, while we're on the subject of supply drops, it's best not to use supply drops if you're a solo player. Here, I decided to give it a go, and because I'm no H-June or anything like that, I set it up right by my base. I thought I could bring people in. I thought I could trap them. It didn't work out. It turns out that the players just killed me, and then they raided my base and took everything that I'd taken from them. So, yeah, supply drops are probably best sold if you're a solo player. Also, before you get any sort of raiding ammo or anything like that, you can raid bases with wood doors. Sometimes you'll be able to find some cool stuff in there. Most of the time you won't be able to find much, but every now and then you find something useful. Once you've got some explosive ammo and a gun that can use it, feel free to go nuts. You put a silencer on your gun and you can just shoot it. Most players won't hear. As long as no one's walking by, you're going to be safe to sort of do an offline raid if you want to do that. If you're going to do something like an online raid, you're going to want a gun that's a little bit faster than this one. Right here, I'm using a bolt-action rifle, which gets the job done, but it takes quite some time. After this, that's why I got that semi-automatic gun. I was like, I've got to trade for a semi-automatic gun because it just takes too long. I was able to raid the space successfully. I did get some cool stuff, but yeah, this was not the best way to do it. And honestly, if I had to do it again, I would have sold the supply drop for that gun and then just gone in guns blazing, shot right through those doors pretty fast, and gotten out of there a lot quicker because I took a big risk that I didn't need to take. Anyways, yeah, so basically running tier 3 monuments, raiding, or doing research on your workbench. Those are the 3 ways to go about getting those tier 3 items and getting to endgame. Endgame is basically the point where you can go out, you can start hunting other players, you can start playing the game, you can start raiding bases, and just sort of making your own story, setting your own goals and making it happen. So yeah, that's Rust. That's the advanced guide to Rust in a nutshell. I'm not going to talk about endgame, but basically once you're running things like cargo and oil rig, you're good to go. And I'm going to leave you with one sort of parting note here. Subscribe to Serial Overdrive. No, that's actually not the note, but if you subscribe, it does help. Always be nice to players. Every now and then you're going to see a new player. You're going to shoot them in the head because you don't know if they're going to kill you or not. But if you look at their inventory and they've got nothing on them, pick them up. Let them keep going because you never know. Maybe it's some new player who just spawned in and, you know, they're new to the game, so it's best to give them a nice little intro rather than the typical Rust intro. So yeah, that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. If you liked the video, hit like. If you really liked the video, or if you want to help me out, hit the subscribe button. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry this video went a little bit longer than expected, but yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. So until next time, peace.